Just trying to get Senators Washington and Hester here before we get started. Senator Washington's stuck in some traffic, but when Senator Hester comes, I think we need to get started. So Senator Hester is en route. In the building. Actually, why don't we just, are we streaming? Okay, let's get started. There's a couple of things that I don't think are going to be super controversial. So we are in the two spot on two Simon Air bills from JPR. So why don't we start with Senate Bill 280, Devin. Again, we're second and on both 280 and 281. So tell us what these bills do from JPR.
Senate Bill 280, Judicial and Public Safety for Service Members Act. This bill generally establishes uniform definitions related to the military and the correctional services, courts and judicial proceedings, criminal law, family law, general provisions, public safety, real property, and state government articles of the Maryland Code, primarily by reference to definitions in the U.S. Code. While numerous alterations within the bill represent only stylistic changes, there are substantive changes. These changes generally make certain provisions, including those related to court fees, more broadly applicable to additional service members. EEE is secondary on the bill, and the amendments to the bill are technical.
Okay, Senator Simon Air, anything you want to add to your bill on 280?
Yeah, I was over at the voting session yesterday, passed unanimously. Everybody on the committee jumped on as co-sponsors.
Okay, is there a motion? Favorable from Senator Simonaire, second from Senator Gallion. All in favor of this piece of legislation, Senate Bill 280, as it came to us from JPR, raise your hand. All opposed? Okay, that bill carries unanimously. Let's go to Senate Bill 281, also out of JPR.
Senate Bill 281, Transportation Equality for Service Members Act. This bill generally establishes uniform definitions related to the military in the general provisions, state government, and transportation articles of the Maryland Code, primarily by reference to definitions in the U.S. Code. While certain alterations within the bill represent only stylistic and technical changes, there are substantive changes. These changes generally make certain provisions within the transportation article applicable to all members of the uniformed services, thereby expanding eligibility for certain benefits. Examples are special registration plates, license expirations, renewals, emissions exemptions, etc. EEE is secondary on the bill. The amendments to the bill are technical.
Okay, Senator Simonaire. Okay, favorable from the sponsor, Senator Simonaire, on the JPR product as it came to us. Second from Senator Gallion. Discussion. All in favor of Senate Bill 281 as it came to us from JPR, raise your hand. All opposed? That motion carries unanimously. Okay, let's knock out. What's that?
Senator Washington is just within eyesight.
Okay, good. We can get Senator Hester here. We're going to be full strength. Why don't we, let's just knock out, I see some folks here in the audience interested in this one. We did have Senator Zucker, we did have our commemorative day bills yesterday. One I'd like to at least take up here, Senator Zucker's bill, Senate Bill 764, and Devin, why don't you?
Senate Bill 764, State Designations, State Mineral, Chromite, State Mineral Act. This bill designates chromite as the state mineral. There are no amendments.
Okay. Is there a motion? Senator Kagan.
I'm going to move favorable, and I'm going to, if there's a second, I'll speak briefly to the bill. Okay.
Okay, second from Senator Gallion.
So speaking to the bill, I think many of you know that I tend to be pretty curmudgeonly. I hate state symbols. I voted for the rye bill, for Hershey's rye bill last year, year before, because he made the case that it was Maryland history and economic development, so not just the cute calico cat thing. I voted against like half of our symbols. But this one, I thought that Senator Zucker also made the history, the historical uniqueness of Maryland, which is why I'm willing to support the bill. Reluctantly.
Okay.
Fair.
Okay. Okay. So we have a motion. There's no amendments. The bill is clean. You know, some people do have reservations generally about some of the designation days, but on this one, anybody want to weigh in, or does it? We need a roll call. Okay. All in favor, Senate Bill 764, raise your hand. All opposed. That bill carries unanimously. Let's. On Senate Bill 783, we did get some pushback. You can see on your desk a letter of information from the State Department of Education, and although it says letter of information, I did even also so. I know, yeah. So I think this. Okay, Senator Carrozza's bill. I mean, I think we're going to hold the bill because I think this is a lot of pushback at this point. Yes.
No, I just want to speak to it.
Sure.
First of all, I didn't appreciate the fact that I did not receive a call directly from Dr. Wright. This was my bill, so just thought I should have received that courtesy. And second of all, I just want to be clear to my colleagues, especially those who have been opposing it. This bill just does two things. It actually requires an investigation when there is a school fight or school violence. It requires that an investigation be done. I know in most cases it is being done, but this requires it. And then the only other piece of it is if in the course of the investigation it is found that a student used reasonable force to protect themselves, that student would not be disciplined. That's all the bill does. It doesn't affect restorative justice or any other measures that the locals already have in their toolkit. That's all this bill does. So there was a lot of, I think, misinformation about it increasing discipline in the schools, and that's not the case at all. So I just want to be clear with my colleagues on the intention of the bill, what the bill does, and again, would have appreciated the conversation with Dr. Wright.
Okay, we are going to hold the bill and that.
Just
yeah,
a comment.
Sure.
I just want to say, Senator Crozer, I absolutely appreciate what you're attempting to do. I didn't agree with this vehicle, so I support the whole, but I definitely would like to work with you on figuring out something.
Okay, and there is a letter, that letter is on everybody's desk from the State Department of Education. Let's, oh, I'm sorry. Well, we're holding it. We're holding it. It's on the list, so we're holding it.
I hope we have another discussion.
Well, it's not withdrawn, it's not voted on, it is still in play. It's just, we're not going to vote on today in light of this letter. I think we need to assess it, and that's, so it's, you know, is there a cross-file, just so we're clear? Is there? Okay, well, we could have a bill back over here from the House, too. That's another option. Okay, let's, I think Jared, we specifically had a couple bills that we were hoping to have your expertise, and I know you weren't available yesterday. Why don't you come up? We got two election law bills. Let's start with Simple 93 from Senator Kramer, Stacy, and we've got Jared here today.
Senate Bill 93, election law, absentee ballot application, sending to eligible voters before the primary elections. This bill requires each local board of elections to at least 60 days before each statewide primary election to send the state-approved absentee ballot application to each eligible voter. A local board of elections is not required to send the state-approved absentee ballot application to a voter who has a permanent absentee ballot status. There is one amendment offered by Senator Kramer, and if this is a new packet, I have no idea what the number is. This amendment requires a local board to send a written notice regarding a request for a state-approved absentee ballot application with a specimen ballot and any other mailing to voters or potential voters to further awareness of the option of mail-in voting. A local board is not required to send this notice to a voter more than once per election year or for a vote-by-mail election.
Okay, either Senator Kagan or Jared, do you want to give us a little more info on the bill?
Sure.
I had some conversations last night, and permanent absentee, which I kind of railed against last night, is obviously not affected by this bill. I need my folder. But the key thing is that this isn't an extra mailing, so we're not putting it on our local boards of elections. And this is the sample ballot that the counties send out. And so they're just going to say, if you want to get a mail-in ballot, then QR code. And Stacy, I didn't message you this morning, and I'm sorry. It shouldn't be exclusively a QR code. So it should be QR code or a link or some other way of saying, I would like a mail-in ballot. But I don't think any locals are going to do more than one mailing. If they were doing more than one mailing, they wouldn't have to do the second mailing saying, are you sure you don't want a mail-in ballot? Because you can get one here. If they were doing a second one, they wouldn't have to include the people who are already on the mail-in ballot, permanent mail-in ballot list. So it's something that's already happening. It's basically just putting an addition saying, here's how to get it if you're not already on the list.
Senator Carrozza, you have a question?
I think my question is for the state administrator. So what this bill does is we're saying that the mailings that the locals are already sending out, we are now going to include information with a link, QR code on how they can scan so they can immediately get their absentee ballot application. And if that's the case, does that require legislation?
So, yes, this bill would just basically say, like, on other mailers to both voters and potential voters. And potential voters are the ones that are eligible but have not registered. We get a list from motor vehicles on that front there. With our mailers, with like a specimen ballot, that we're going to put in information, an awareness campaign on how to apply to receive a mail-in ballot. So you would get it and saying, you know, these are the deadlines for a mail-in ballot application, and, you know, when you need to apply and what it means, so you can then get a mail-in ballot for that upcoming election. So it'll be on the specimen ballot and possible other mailings as well.
And that requires legislation.
I think it's a policy determination, you know, and this is something that now it's mandating that we put it in all the, on this mailer as well as other mailers as well.
So it's not requiring the locals to send an additional mailer
No.
out. It's on all mailers that go out, it would include the information about how to receive your absentee ballot.
Mail-in,
The application.
It would be a mail-in ballot application, right? It would be like, if you want to have a mail-in ballot, you know, please, you know, click on this link, click on this QR code, you know, whatever we can do to, it's just an awareness portion of it. So and in order to make the cost minimal or not, zero, it's just to include it in other mailers out there. So like the specimen ballot is like one, and, you know, the state board with the local boards would probably determine what the other mailers would be like.
And with that, the Maryland Association of Election Officials, because I noticed they sent in information, not support, is that,
Yeah, anytime we have awareness about methods of voting, I think that, you know, allowing people, you know, how to vote is a good thing. And so, you know, the local boards are in full support. I mean, our mission is to make people vote and to make sure that they know all the options of how to vote. So the specimen ballot basically is just informing them, you know, here's your ballot, here's your early voting locations, here's your polling place, but here's the third option, which is you don't have to go to A or B, you can go to C as well.
and you'll have a template for the QR code so they can just cut and paste, or what is that?
Yes, I mean, right. I mean,
And
this
that's
is
what-
basically supplementing, so the last two elections, we were mailing out the applications themselves to all the eligible voters. This is now a method to keep up that awareness for individuals in the state, allowing them to know what is going on in the mail-in ballot, you know, to get the application and to know the deadlines and to make more people aware of that third option.
So they
voting.
have the information and they can apply for their absentee ballot. I mean, they have, it's, the purpose is, you're not sending them, you're saying in the past, we sent the ballot,
We sent the application.
we sent the application. Now we're not sending the application, we're sending the
Information.
information on how they can go about getting their application. Is that correct?
Just adding,
Or
Sharon, correct me if
directly
I'm right.
to it, they
Not re-
apply.
Not requiring that there be an extra mailing,
Right.
offering the option of a mailing. Some locals may decide they want to do that, but at the very least, all 24 jurisdictions, when they send the voter information mailer, nonpartisan
do
voter,
anyway, right.
they're just going to have one little thing. If you want to vote by mail, here's how you can do that.
Okay. And you're confirming that requires legislation?
Requiring it in all 24, as opposed to it sure would be a nice idea if.
Okay.
Okay, Senator Simon.
Just a quick question. I don't have the bill in front of me, or the amendments. I think they got recycled. But anyway, the term potential voters.
Yes.
I just heard your explanation. Is there a definition in election law of what that definition is? I mean, I understand what you're saying, but when you read the code and it says potential voter,
Well, I guess, I mean, anybody who's over 18 that's not registered as a potential voter, that is a resident of the state, that meets all the qualifications. And we have, you know, people that have driver's license that we get, and we do mailers out to them to inform them of their right to come in on same-day voter registration, which now we would say, oh, by the way, you can also register to vote online and then become a part of the mail-in, you know, and apply and get your mail-in ballot as well. You don't have to come in and do same-day voter registration because we mail them out earlier.
right? No, I
So this
understand
is,
that.
so I
but-
mean, there is a universe, and that we've already kind of defined in regulations.
So you would agree that anybody over 18 is not necessarily eligible to vote in our state?
Well, I mean, you have to be a U.S. citizen, you have to meet all the qualifications of it.
Yeah, I'm just concerned that we have a term that's very vague and broad, says a potential voter with no definition to what that is. And under your administration, our next one could interpret it differently. And then the follow-up question is, so this legislation is sending out how to get application to vote, basically.
Right.
Why would we be sending that to somebody who hasn't even registered to vote yet? It seems like you're getting the cart before the horse.
So you can put both together on the same information. So the whole point is you can be registering to vote, being like, we send out a mailer saying, please register to vote, you're eligible to vote. And by the way, this is a method of how to vote if you want to vote, so you're not wasting time or a chance to talk to them, because most
I
people
get that, I
know
get that.
how to
So-
vote on election day, but they're not sure about the option of mail-in.
So all the mailers that go out currently, all of them have, here's how you register to vote?
Yeah.
All right, I'm still not comfortable with the undefined term.
Okay, any additional questions? Okay, we have Kramer amendments on the table. Yes?
Move the Kramer amendments.
Okay, Kramer amendments have been moved. Is there a second on the Kramer amendments? Senator from Senator Augustine. Any discussion of the Kramer amendments? Nathan?
Yes, I actually have a question.
Okay, Vice Chair Kagan.
Sorry, Jared, I just caught this, and I apologize for springing it last second, but on page 9 of yesterday's packet, it says the local boards are not required to send this more than once per election year. Is the word year needed? Because more than once per election, because the primary election and the general election, aren't they sending the packet, the voter information out before each of those two elections?
So, yes, I think
I'm wondering whether we should excise the word year.
probably year now on this frontier, because I think this was part of the old one where it was sending out the applications to everyone.
Right.
Right, so I think this is, you can probably get rid of year.
Stacy, are you okay with excising the word year?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's excise the word year. So that's an amendment to the amendment. Is everybody, Mr. Chair, sorry.
We can take a vote on that. We haven't voted on the amendment, but
Okay,
we'll
and then I have one
incorporate
more.
that modification into the vote.
Okay,
Yes.
and then the one more thing, which is, as we discussed yesterday, there are a lot of people who are not comfortable for various reasons, whether it's technological comfort or machinery or whatever, not comfortable with QR codes. And so the concept of can't just include a QR code. So there would have to be a www, a URL, so that voters would have both options. So Stacy, do you have any rough how you might?
I would not, I mean, I would say that that's a little too prescriptive into the weeds of this for, like, we understand, like, it would not necessarily just be a QR code, but like, we would have things where they would be like on the forms with a line or anything like that. But, if it's a postcard, we might just not have all the space, so we'd want to be like, but at the same time, we're going to try to do both on every front there, but I don't think it needs to have that in the legislation. I mean, you can, it's your prerogative on that front there, but we can.
Okay, well, Senator Kagan, I would say the administrator's got some reservations. If we go to the floor with the bill, we can maybe have a floor amendment, and have some further conversation, okay? Okay, well, we have Senator Washington now has a question.
I was just looking, in the bill for consistency of the language. In the original bill, we refer to, and maybe it'll address, we don't know, maybe it'll address our colleagues' concern. We use the word eligible voter. Is there a difference between eligible and potential? And if we used eligible in the amendment,
That would
would
be
that
fine.
change the meaning?
Yeah, that's
makes you
fine.
more
Yeah, that's fine.
comfortable?
Okay, yeah.
Stacy, did you get that tweak?
To students who are like 17 or 16, because they can be election judges? Is that something that goes out? I just don't want to remove it because an eligible voter is under the age of 18, correct?
No, I don't, we don't, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So we'll be fine.
Okay, everybody got that? That's going to be another tweak before we take a vote on the Kramer amendment. Okay, any further questions about the Kramer amendment? All in favor of the Kramer amendment, raise your hand. All opposed, that amendment carries. We now have in front of us Senate Bill 93 as amended. Let's, it seems like there was some reservation. Let's do a roll call on Senate Bill 93 as amended. We need a motion on the bill as amended. Senate Bill 93 as amended, Senator Augustine moves, and a second from Senator Simon Ayer. Okay. Okay, with that, let's do a roll call on Senate Bill 93 as amended.
Vice Chair Kagan?
Aye.
Vice Chair Kagan says aye. Senator Augustine?
Yes.
Augustine, aye. Senator Gallion?
Yes.
Gallion says aye. Senator Watson?
Yes.
Watson says aye. Senator Brooks?
Yes.
Senator Brooks says aye. Senator Attar?
Yes.
Senator Attar says aye. Senator Carozza?
Yes.
Senator Carozza says aye. Senator Hester? Senator Hester says aye. Senator Washington? Senator Washington says yes. Senator Simon Ayer says yes. Senator Feldman?
Yes, bill carries unanimously. Let's go to the other election bill from Senator Kagan, Senate Bill 633, and then we can let Jared go on his way.
Senate Bill 633, Campaign Finance, Political Organizations, Disclosures on Solicitations, Stop Scam PACs Act. This bill requires certain persons that solicit for a candidate or a political party and use the candidate's name, image, or likeness in the solicitation to include a specified disclaimer on the solicitation. The bill also requires certain persons that solicit for what appears to be a charitable purpose to include on each solicitation a statement that contributions or donations to the person are not necessarily used for charitable purposes and are not tax deductible. The state administrator of elections or his designee is authorized to investigate potential violations and may prohibit a violator from soliciting contributions or donations for a period of time or impose a civil penalty of up to $10,000. There is one amendment from Senator Kagan, and this amendment strikes the language regarding a solicitation for a charitable purpose and associated disclosure and substitutes a solicitation for an electoral or political purpose and adds an associated disclosure of 5 recipients to which the person made the largest expenditures or disbursements during the immediately preceding calendar quarter.
Okay, Senator Kagan, yes.
Thank you, Tanya. I want to start first by apologizing to my colleagues that I was so brain dead yesterday that I just didn't explain this well, and so I appreciate the chance to try again with more brain cells intact. So, Senator Carozza, you asked about the list of 5, and in my brain, I was thinking donors, it's recipients. So if this is independent expenditures, this is not business PACs, this is not labor union PACs that generally do checkoffs and raise money from their members and stuff. This is an independent, sometimes kind of, I'm going to use disparaging, fly-by-night organization like the Ken Cuccinelli situation in Virginia, which I think was incorporated in Maryland, but actually was allegedly helping a Virginia candidate. And so this would require these PACs to register with the State Board of Elections and then disclose where they're sending the money, not where the money comes from, but where they're spending it. So if someone is creating an organization allegedly to support or oppose a candidate, the top 5 should be the mail company, the telephone ad, the TV station, the post office. Like, those are what one spends money on, the print shop, you know, when you're running an independent expenditure. If they're spending, their top 5 include the accounting firm that the founder owns, or a real estate company that the founder owns, or something that shows self-dealing, that would be disclosure. It would be a buyer beware. It needs to be on their website. It needs to be disclosed in a way that then our constituents won't be snookered. And what has happened is, so as you not remember from last year, but the IRS and the Federal Election Commission recommended that states pass these laws, which a number of states have done, because they are more prevalent. And by having a law on the book with penalties, including these guys who went to jail for 3 years in Virginia, or for the Virginia transgression, we think we can keep them out of Maryland and not have the problem. So by passing it this year, we can avoid problems in next year's election year.
Okay,
I hope that's
oh.
clearer than I was trying to do. Yes.
Okay, Senator Carrozza has a question.
Thank you, and I do appreciate the explanation. So on these mailers, it's going to have the 5 recipients of the largest expenditures. When they list that, so let's say one of them is going to a mail house, but it was the expenditure was to the mail house to produce a Senator Kagan's reelection. Is it just going to say the mail house, or is it going to say the actual purpose of that expenditure?
I'll start, and then I'll let Jared amplify or correct if I don't get it. So think of this as a fundraising letter. This isn't the let's reelect Senator Carrozza because she's doing great work. So it's not that kind of mailer. It's the fundraising letter going to all the prospective donors to make sure that they have the information before they decide to give the money. And it's just for political campaigns, again, not unions, not corporations, but it's for independent expenditures only. And it's just, I'm asking you in a direct mail mailer or on my website or through a tweet or something, there has to be access to the information of how the money is going to be spent, so you can't get ripped off. Jared, can you help me?
I would just mention that because usually these solicitations for independent expenditures identify a candidate in which they're trying to support or oppose. So this point here is that the 5 recipients, then a person would on the solicitation be able to see if they're actually doing what they're saying that they're doing. So like the senator said, it's kind of like a buyer beware. It's a disclosure element here. So instead of looking at possibly they didn't file a campaign finance report or anything to that nature, this is giving that information right up front to the individual before they make a donation to that independent expenditure to see if they're actually spending money in accordance with what they're promoting.
What they promised.
Yeah.
So, but back to my specific question. So and I understand these are independent expenditures. So on this solicitation that's being sent out to raise money, on that disclosure, it will have the 5 recipients of the expenditures, but then that would also include who it benefited.
That's part B of the amendment there, which is the total amount that was spent on behalf, like there. So that would go to to a candidate. That's how I interpret that one there. So they would say, so the 5 would be like mail house, whatever, X, Y, and Z. And then on the bottom there would be like, this is how much we spent on behalf of this candidate. This is how much we spent on behalf of this candidate in the last quarter. So that you would know that if it was 0 or if it was nothing, that basically, well, what is this organization raising money for? And then you can inquire as to that, or people can lodge complaints as saying, hey, I gave $100 to this organization here. They promised that they were supposed to be fundraising on behalf of this candidate and making independent expenditures, but clearly they're not, and then we can then investigate.
Okay, Senator Watson.
Thank you. But Jared, don't you already do that if they're supposed to do a campaign report anyway?
So this one goes more towards, so the campaign reports for independent expenditures are when you make electoral communications. So in a sense, they're trying to operate in a little bit of a gray area before they would say make any sort of legitimate expenditures towards the political arena. So a scam pack kind of operates in a sense before they need to disclose, right? So they start to fundraise, and then they'll just fundraise, and then they just line their own pockets with expenditures. But they never really do the activity that would trigger reporting.
So what you would receive in the mail is just a snapshot in time, right?
Yes.
Because the money is going to continue to go wherever it goes.
Exactly, right. So
But the only way ultimately for you to figure it all out is to look at the granularity that is supposed to be in a a report that gets submitted to the Board of Elections, right?
Right, but at least now you get an idea in the last quarter what they did without going to the report, because they might not have spent $6,000 or $10,000 in public communications to trigger a report, and just might be still fundraising and then saying it's all for staff purposes. And never make that, and never make it. So if you're constantly seeing this solicitation that is going, staffing in the last quarter of your 5 biggest expenditures, but you're supposedly saying, I'm gonna spend, I'm trying to raise $1 million for a TV ad, and you see nothing of the sort, a person can then say, wait a second here, why is everything all staffing? And that's why they're more scam. That's why it's more called the scam pack than anything else, because they're not fulfilling their ultimate mission.
All right, thank you.
Okay, additional questions for Jared or for Senator Kagan? Okay, we have a Kagan amendment on the table. Is there a motion to move the Kagan amendment to the bill? There's a sponsor moves the favorable, second from Senator Augustine. Any discussion on this Kagan amendment? All in favor of the Kagan amendment on 633, raise your hand. All opposed, that motion carries unanimously. We have Senate Bill 633 as amended before us. Is there a motion?
So moved, as amended.
Okay, sponsor moves the bill favorable, second from Senator Augustine. Discussion. Okay. All in favor, Senate Bill 633 as amended, raise your hand. All opposed, that, everybody up? All that motion carries unanimously. Let's go back to the top of the list. We're going to end with the Augustine bill, so let's get through these couple more, and then we will have time to exclusively discuss Senate Bill 901. But let's go up to Senate Bill 29, Walt Stryker Reedy bill. There was some discussion at our last voting session about it. Just refresh everybody's memory, Stacy, about the bill and maybe some
I should
suggestions.
note that Senator Wallstreicher is asked to withdraw that the amendment be put on Senate Bill 29 and instead put the amendment on Senate Bill 130, and then add his name as a co-sponsor to that bill along with Senator Watson. So,
And me. I didn't put my name, but
okay.
I would want to.
We'll go through that at the end. I just want to do the reminder. So this
Right.
bill establishes, and now I have to find a new thing, so, because we substituted the bill, hold on. Okay. So this bill, with County Boards of Education Student Cellular Device Use Policy established. Again, this is Senate Bill 130. The bill requires each local board of education to develop and adopt a policy that prohibits the use of cellular devices by students during instructional time, requires students to store their cellular phone in a secure storage container during instructional time, and includes appropriate disciplinary measures for violations of the policy. Under the bill, instructional time includes any time during the school day except a student's lunch period, and a cellular device includes any portable wireless communication device, smartphones, tablets, or wearable devices. So the amendment offered by Senator Wallstreicher now to Senate Bill 130 would codify the current MSD policy. It requires MSDE in collaboration with stakeholders to develop and periodically update guidelines for a policy on student use of personal electronic devices during school hours, provides for the components of the guidance. Each county board, in collaboration with specified stakeholders, must develop and adopt a policy that limits a student from using a personal electronic device during school hours and provides for the basic components of the policy. I think the difference is that one tells the LEAs exactly what the policy has to be, and the amendment has MSD setting up guidance and some components of a policy, requires the LEA to have a policy, but gives more flexibility as to what that policy would be.
Okay, so we did have, yes, so we've got the amendment that we're going to move that to a Benson bill, correct? Is that part of the amendment? And then you want to be on the bill who would like to be on the bill as a co-sponsor? Okay, we're going to go Senator Attar, Senator Augustine. Okay, Senator Feldman will go on there, Senator Washington, Senator Hester, and Senator Brooks. Yes, Senator Simon, your questions?
This is just for Montgomery County and Carroll County, correct?
What this does is substitutes bills. So instead of this amendment going on Senate Bill 29, the amendment will go on Senate Bill 130, which was offered by Senator Benson.
Okay, and that does, I'm just trying to get the scope again. Is that statewide?
It is statewide, yes.
Okay, so that changes what yesterday was.
The amendment still is, it strikes the bill and substitutes this language where MSDE has to set up guidelines and then locals have to establish policies based on these guidelines.
Okay, and you're saying this will not impact how Anne Arundel County does theirs, or it could?
It could, if Anne Arundel County does not have a component that would be required in the law, then they would have to add one of those components, yes.
Okay, and then functionally, because I've gotten some parents contacting me on this, they like the way it's running in Anne Arundel County as far as how they have it, when they can get to it, and so forth. Would this impact to that detail as far as they have access during these hours and certain hours they don't? Because that's what
No,
parents are
though, it's a
concerned about.
limitation on the use. It's not a prohibition, it's not a ban, it's not a specific, you have to tell them at these particular times. It's allowing the county to make those decisions based on age cohort.
Okay, so it's,
Additional questions? Okay, Senator Gallion?
So bring back to, I guess, our discussion yesterday. I mean, the counties already, many of them are already doing some sort of thing, and they already can, there's a lot of flexibility of what they can do with this. So I don't understand really passing any bill like this when the counties are already working on this and many have already established policies. Why, what's so important that we have to set certain guardrails? Why can't we leave it up to the LEAs since they're already working on this?
That's a policy decision of this committee.
I mean, that's, you raise an issue, and obviously, you have a vote. Any other questions for Stacy? Okay, we do have an amendment that's been proffered, and so we do need to take that up with, where in the packet?
It's on page 3.
Page 3, the packet. And Senator Augustine, I think you moved the amendment, did you not? And there was a second from, who was the second? Was there a second from Senator Attar, one of the co-sponsors? Yes? Okay, yes.
can I ask a question about the amendment?
Sure, on the amendment.
So things are moving fast, I understand. So I'm looking up Senate Bill 130, that's the bill we're working with now. And there was, and I may have missed this, I apologize. There was unfavorable by PSAM, Howard County, Federation of the Blind. Are they okay with the amended version?
They're okay with the amended version because it's substituting totally different language.
Okay.
Additional questions for Stacy? Okay, all in favor of the amendment, raise your hand. Anybody opposed to the amendment? Senator Watson? Are you, okay, all opposed, that amendment carries. We have,
Move the bill as amended, just to start this conversation.
correct,
With the sponsors.
with all the amendments and the sponsor amendments, and a second, okay, Senator Augustine moves the bill as amended along with, and second from Senator Washington. Senate Bill 130, which is now the vehicle, okay? Everybody get it? Okay, everybody gets to vote how they want? Yes, Senator Augustine will speak to the bill before we take a vote.
So we had, I think, 4 different bills in here around phones in schools and trying to, identifying that this was an area that we wanted to have. So it's an issue, number one. And then number 2, that we would want to have some consistency, which is what I think this does, because MSDE is already doing this as, just to be clear, that they too are trying to create a framework so that we have some consistency across the state as it relates to how these phones are being in there and are impacting our kids, which we know that they are. And so for me, this is something that really rises quite a bit back home, where folks are very, very concerned about the impact of cell phones and everything else, and that's why I'm really supportive of this bill. Thank you.
Okay, Senator Washington.
To add to that, I think, Senator Watson, it also, and Senator Galliot, I think it also conveys our legislative intent that we hear that this is an issue, that we do believe that and support the jurisdictions that are all, and also frankly give some cover and support for people that are having a more difficult time. And so I think that this, one, establishes legislative intent and also can support the efforts of the locals in implementing these.
Okay, any additional comments before we take a vote? We had a motion and a second on the bill 130 as amended. Sure.
I mean, when I look at the amendment, it seems that like the department's going to do guidelines, but then each county still adopts a policy to keeping those guidelines. So there's still like a lot of local control.
I think that's accurate, right?
I'd love to come up with a really good name for this bill.
Okay, well, you can, on the floor, if you come up with something, you can offer a committee amendment if, okay?
Thank you very much.
Okay, any other comments, questions? Okay, we'll take a vote. Everybody gets to vote however they want. All in favor of this piece of legislation as amended, raise your hand. Okay, who's opposed? And we've got Senator Gallion with a red. Did you have a vote, Simon Ayer? What was your vote? Okay. Okay, that was a half vote. 9.5, okay, so the bill carries 10-1 with one dissenting vote from Senator Gallion. Let's quickly, Devin, explain this bill from Senator Ellis.
Senate Bill 148, State Board of Public Accountancy, emeritus status. This bill authorizes the State Board of Public Accountancy to place a licensee on emeritus status if the applicant meets specified requirements. Additionally, the board is required to reinstate the license of an individual on emeritus status under certain circumstances. The bill takes effect July 1, 2025. There are amendments. I put them on your desk. They're offered by the sponsor, and they are the Department of Labor's requested amendments. And with that, the department does not oppose the bill. Actually, they had said favorable with amendments. Just for your information, I did a quick search, and Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, California, Utah, Kentucky, Florida all have this emeritus status.
Okay, so we've got an amendment. These are Department of Labor / Ellis amendments, favorable from Senator Augustine, second from Senator Washington. All in favor of the amendments, raise your hand. All opposed, the motion carries unanimously. Senate Bill 148 as amended is in front of us. Discussion, is there a motion on the bill? Senator Augustine moves the bill. Senator Kagan moves, seconds the bill, favorable. All in favor, Senate Bill 148 as amended, raise your hand. All opposed, that motion carries unanimously. Let's go down to 845, which we had a discussion about yesterday. We're going to go back to you, Stacy.
Senate Bill 845, Local Education Agencies, Educator Screening, the NASTEC Clearinghouse, School Personnel Vetting and Hiring Transparency Act. This bill requires each local school system in Maryland to become an associate member of the National Association of State Directors of Teacher Education and Certification, or NASTEC, and it uses Educator Identification Clearinghouse to screen all current and prospective educators beginning July 1, 2025. There's one amendment from Senator Hedelman in your voting packet somewhere. This amendment requires the department to register each LEA in the state as an associate member of NASTEC and pay an applicable fees and dues. And LEA is required to utilize the clearinghouse to screen each individual who applies for an educator position on or after July 1, 2025. I have some language from MSDE that they would like the committee to be aware of. From MSDE, while each LEA has access to licensure system and can see if a licensure applicant has a record of action taken in another state, an associate membership will allow LEAs to access the clearinghouse during the hiring process before the prospective employee submits an application for licensure. Additionally, an associate member and LEA may choose to have an interface established between the HR system and the clearinghouse to receive daily updates that alert the LEA when an applicant or employee has taken action in another state. MSDE believes it's critical that each local education agency consults with the Educator Identification Clearinghouse when recruiting employees to ensure that the LEA has the opportunity to investigate an applicant who has had action taken in another state before receiving an offer of employment. Given the minimal fiscal impact to LEAs, MSDE supports this bill.
Okay, Senator Kagan did talk to Senator Hedelman. I think a bit, just a little more to add to
Thank
the
you.
discussion here.
So colleagues, you know how sometimes when a bill seems confusing and then suddenly after you get the right thing said, the light bulb goes on? That's what happened for me last night talking to Senator Hedelman on this, because Stacy kept saying their local boards of education already have access to this database. So kind of the why do we need to do this? So what Senator Hedelman said is yes, but, or yes, and. So here's the hiring process. From the very beginning of advertising a vacancy to hiring and the person starts, right? Right now, they do have access, but it's all the way down the road. And they've already invested all this time in interviewing and doing reference checks and spending time with this person. It's a lot of time and money. And this bill, for only $23,000, MSDE can cover all 24 local boards of elections, local counties, and they can check it at the very beginning. Sorry, you're off the list. We're just not even going to interview you because, you know, your stuff wasn't legit. And so that's what this bill allows for $23,000 with no unfunded mandates on our counties.
Okay, Senator Carrozza, you had a question, and then Senator Huston.
So we have the bill and then the amendment that was in our packet. That's on page 55. That's what we're working off of right now.
I don't know the number, to be honest with you. Yes.
So this amendment is clarifying how this would work for each local education
Right, so it
agency?
requires the department, instead of each LEA, to register with NASDAQ, and then MSDE, instead of each LEA, to pay the applicable fees.
And we discussed yesterday that this is a supplement to
It's
a
an additional
local
screening
current-
process, yes.
Do we know, I know that we've had a lot of anecdotal, but do we know if the locals are already, is it hit or miss? Some are currently using it, some are not. Now this,
I believe that Mary Pat Fannin from PASAM said at least 2 counties use this. Yes.
currently use it.
Okay, Senator Hester.
So we talked yesterday about our reluctance to do bills for one company. Is there an amendment to adjust that?
Yeah, we that came loud and clear, so I think we have a tweak to address that. Any?
I was going to get to that now.
Yeah, okay, any other questions before we, Senator Kagan, just to Senator Hester's point?
Right, so Senator Kagan and I had a conversation about this. This happens in other places in the code, especially with licensing. Essentially, you can define more broadly what it is. This is some sort of licensure clearinghouse, and then you can say, including this organization, you can add words such as, or a successor organization, something similar to that. So it's not necessarily codifying one single company in there. If that's the will of the committee, that change can be made.
Yeah, okay, so I think that, sure, Senator Gallion.
So just curious, I know we're trying to get where there's a specific business name out. Is there any other options to do this other than that one?
Well, my only concern with that amendment would be, it seems like the department wants to be part of this particular database. And they asked to pay the fees for this database and participate in this particular licensure clearinghouse. So, I mean, that's the rub. I mean, you have to either make that decision and say you have to pay and be an associate member of this clearinghouse, or you can allow them to do that for any clearinghouse. And to be honest, between last night and tonight, I've not had the opportunity to look to see whether there other ones do exist.
So it's a possibility that we're just taking the name out, but it's going to basically the same thing, except the company's going to be nameless.
Well, it's more generic. For example, you say, I would like an additional screening on an educator license, so MSD has to become an associate member and pay fees to participate in a licensure clearinghouse. And this particular company could be could be one of those types of clearinghouse. So they would be choosing the vendor themselves, but it could still work that way. I mean, the question is, did they want this particular name, or did the committee determination that it's better to leave it more generic in case there's something else out there?
Vice Chair Kagan, I don't want to spend too much more time on
No.
this. I want to get to the Augustine bill.
100%.
Okay.
So I don't know if you all have heard the phrase, it goes back a million, of red-headed Eskimo. Like Eskimos like almost never have red hair, but if you say that this is only a red-headed Eskimo is eligible for this thing, then it's going to be Joe Smith, and that's how we say, but we don't say Joe Smith, right? So red-headed Eskimo can end up meaning that it's NASDAQ, but 50 years from now, if NASDAQ goes out of business or there's someone who does it better, faster, cheaper, then it won't be in our law books that it has to be this organization. So Senator Hedelman sent me language that I will share for your consideration rather than mentioning NASDAQ, and it sounds so much like NASDAQ, NASTech by name instead. A national membership, and it's a nonprofit, a national nonprofit membership organization that is a national collection point for professional educator discipline actions taken by the 50 states, the District of Columbia, U.S. Department of Defense Educational Opportunity Schools, and Guam, that also provides its members with notification of an action taken against the certificate or license of an educator by other member states or jurisdictions. So that's a lot of words other than NASDAQ, but it does make it generic and leave the option open for the future.
I can also note that MABE just now, literally just this second, sent information about
Saying,
their position on this. Thank you for the opportunity to provide input on SB 845 at this late hour. We appreciate the amendment removing funding responsibility from LEAs and centralizing it. This is a significant improvement. As a result, we no longer oppose the bill. However, we wish to provide testimony for informational purposes. Student safety is a top priority. Using NASTech may enhance these efforts. However, administrative adjudication of teacher discipline vary widely from serious infractions that should absolutely bar an individual from the classroom to minor issues that require context. More broadly, we are not sure that NASDEC would be entirely effective on its own. Based on experience with other clearinghouses and do not hire lists, we recognize the limitations of such systems. Reviewing past disciplinary actions requires discretion, and we urge the General Assembly and LEAs not to rely solely on this clearinghouse for employment decisions. While NASDEC can provide useful information that will redound to student safety, due process, context, and professional judgment must remain central to hiring decisions.
Okay, so, yesterday, there was, both Senator Watson and Augustine really wanted to pin, well, at least we now know MABE is no longer opposed. That came up yesterday, and we reached out to them. Is Senator Watson? Yeah.
Why can't the state board, if they're going to pay for it, just do that without a bill?
They absolutely can.
Okay, thank you.
So, Tanya? Okay, so there's, forgive me for going to an analogy here, but ERIC, the Electronic Registration Information Center, is 50 states of voter registration. So if you move from Wyoming to Maryland, we need to make sure we're canceling your registration. All that information is kind of available to everyone. This is kind of a similar thing. Whereas if someone did something bad in another state, we don't want MSDE to try to have to dig up what they did in Wyoming or Arizona or wherever else they taught before when they're applying for a new job. And I guess there's a situation where there was an athletic coach who had infractions. This isn't like an oops thing. And the hiring organization can also decide whether it's a teeny tiny infraction and not something they're going to worry about, or whether it's a sexual offense or violence or something against a colleague or student, in which case they want to stop the interview process, the hiring process, and move on to another candidate.
Okay, I think we're,
Fair?
we still have to settle on this, okay, you came up with language, and on which language? We have this language.
Stacey, did you like the Hedelman version, or is there something simpler?
It's hard to do that when you're,
Yeah,
when you're
you're
talking.
putting her on the spot here.
I'm gonna read the Hedelman
Okay, well,
language or
well,
something
before we
like
go, Senator Hester, why don't you pipe in here?
My preference would be to do something slightly broader,
Yeah.
given what Maeve has just said. I think the Hedelman language is very narrowly tailored, and something more similar to what Stacy said originally. I mean, we're just looking for a licensing system that has statewide disciplinary
Is
actions,
that a conceptual amendment?
something like that.
I mean, is that something you could work on for the
Yes.
committee? Okay.
Conceptual amendment.
Is everybody okay with the conceptual amendment that's,
Second.
broad? And we're confident that, okay, now, nobody has to, because Senator Watson had some, sure.
Just to be super clear. So the conceptual amendment, sorry, Tanya, conceptual amendment will not name NASDAQ, will say all the states' background information available to our LEAs. And, okay, that's,
So generally, again, as in other articles we've done, you can define it as a licensure clearinghouse. You can include the name of them or a successor organization as an example of the type of organization that you're thinking of, and that is common in other articles.
so successor organization is fine, but if it's Coke and not Pepsi, for instance.
No, the
There's a
definition is
competitor
broader.
possibility.
The definition is broader, but it's an example of the type of organization that that definition would apply to.
Yeah, I think we're going to torture this. I really feel like it's not like, okay, Maeve's not opposed to the bill. They've weighed in. Okay, I don't want to just press it on anybody. Everybody can vote no. But is everybody okay? I'll move a conceptual amendment, and we'll let Stacy work on something.
Sure.
All in favor of that, okay? And again, when we get, now, Senator Watson, you want to dissent, or are you in? You good? Okay. Okay, we have this
Move
piece
the
of.
bill as amended.
Okay, we've got Senate Bill 845 as amended in front of us. And the second, favorable from Senator Augustine, second from Vice Chair Kagan. And again, vote however you want. All in favor, Senate Bill 845 as amended, raise your hand. I'm looking around. Okay. That bill carries unanimously. Again, we get to the floor, you can vote red. Okay, let's go. We've got a half hour, and we'll tell the floor that we have this high priority bill out of Augustine that we need probably more. They'll wait for us. Okay, on Senate Bill 901, we went through the bill yesterday. Let's spend a half hour and let's talk about the bill, and the floor will wait for us.
So Senate Bill 901, Environment, Packaging Materials, Producer Responsibility Plans. As a reminder, this is the bill that we walked through last night. The bill, with the amendments proposed by Senator Augustine, establishes an extended producer responsibility program for packaging and paper products collectively defined as covered materials. Broadly, the bill requires producers of covered materials to individually or through the Producer Responsibility Organization, or PRO, selected by the Department of the Environment, submit a producer responsibility plan to the department and take certain actions in accordance with the plan. It also allows the PRO to collect fees from member producers, allows service providers, which are local governments and private entities that provide certain recycling or composting services, to seek reimbursement from the PRO for certain costs related to providing covered services to covered entities. And finally, authorizes the department to take certain enforcement actions against a PRO or producer that fails to meet goals established under the bill. Just one addition from what was discussed last night. This is the document that Stacy just passed around. There were some additional kind of offline conversations with some of the stakeholders, and Senator Augustine is has requested 3 different additional changes to those amendments that were being considered last night. The first, on page 11 of the reprint, adds another provision to the exempt materials definition. This was in the Minnesota law, but was not in the original versions of the amendments that you viewed last night. Would include as an exempt material a covered material that a producer distributes to another producer that is subsequently used to contain a product, and the product is distributed to a commercial or business entity, and not introduced to a person other than the commercial or business entity that first received the product. So what this is getting at is, I'll use this as an example, if you are shipping food to a grocery store and you have it in a big cardboard box, and that cardboard box is not being used to then, it's just being used to get all the produce or all the items to the grocery store, and the grocery store is disposing of it, it's not going to consumers. That would be an example of the sort of thing that this is getting at. The next proposed change on page 26 through 27 of the reprint. There's already a provision in the amended bill providing that performance goals established under producer responsibility plan for a period of 5 years after the date on which the plan is approved do not.
The page that you're referencing, the 26, is that at the bottom of the page or is that at the?
So yeah, this would be at the, 26 on to 27, so yes, it's at the bottom. Of the, right, bottoms of the page, sorry. Performance goals established under the producer responsibility plan, so already it says for a period of 5 years, doesn't cover, this is essentially packaging that's used for cheese, meat, poultry, prepared and packaged at retail locations such as grocery stores, butchers, shops, or online retailers because they contain pathogens that can't be processed by most recycling. And it says contingent on the, so that basically that exemption will last until recycling infrastructure is available to handle those packages. People in the organics recycling field sort of requested to be added into there just to acknowledge that that is one potential avenue in the future for dealing with these pathogen contaminated packaging. Can you say that one more time? Yeah, sorry. So already this said that for a period of 5 years, with an optional extension of 5 years contingent on the development of recycling infrastructure capable of handling pathogen-contaminated packaging in an effective manner, cheese, meat, and poultry prepared and packaged at a retail location such as grocery stores, butcher shops, or online retailers is exempt, essentially, from the bill's requirements. This just adds organic recycling to that. So the idea is, in the future, so organics recycling is broader than just composting. That would potentially include things like anaerobic digestion, things like that. If there was potentially technology in the future that would be capable of handling this pathogen contaminated packaging, then that packaging could be brought into the PRO because it would become recyclable in some manner.
So by including organics recycling here, you're excluding it from the performance goals?
No.
No.
By including here, really all it is doing is just acknowledging that that is one potential avenue for handling these difficult to manage materials in the future. I would flag that I don't necessarily think this is this is not really a substantive change. This is just requested by the organics recycling people as a sort of flag that it's a possibility
It's a possibility for what?
for processing, recycling in some manner, pathogen contaminated packaging at some point in the future.
The same way that you could do so with recycling, of the recycling, it's just is including it in the list of ways that we may be able to handle these pathogen contaminated packaging in a safe and effective manner.
So what happens, my question is, what happens after 5 years?
In 5 years, MDE evaluates the existing infrastructure in the state and says, has something changed? Can we now handle pathogen contaminated packaging through recycling or organics recycling?
So, colleagues, there is another bill that would help to solve the organics recycling problem that Vice Chair Boyce has introduced 4 or 5 years in a row, and this committee has not moved.
Is it in there?
What?
No, did they pass it?
I don't know. But like, there's no way for us to get to full organics recycling, which once again is all the organics that winds up, in the landfill, which produces the methane, which is the most harmful greenhouse gas emission. And I don't know why that bill is not moving. We finally got all the stakeholders in alignment, but it's important. And I just want to make sure that we're not saying that we're not doing that for 5 years. And I'd really like the committee's help to try to figure out why 4 years in a row, we still do not have this bill where everybody else, all the other states have a statewide tipping fee, and we do not, and therefore we have no way to fund infrastructure for organics recycling.
That's not what this is doing, but I hear, you know what I mean, in this bill.
I just wanted to make a point.
About okay, fair.
I mean, and if there's anything we can do, 4 years in a row, we've tried to do this. It's not moving.
Okay.
Okay, let's move on. In just full disclosure, I did exchange some emails with Delegate Boyce even just last night about, I think, this other issue. So, okay, it's definitely now on the radar screen. Okay, let's just.
So this amendment does not prevent us from doing anything for 5 years. No, it's not. Okay.
That's not what it's saying.
And then the final piece on page 37 of the reprint provides, this is adding 37. Adds language around the handling of proprietary information that could be distributed or that could be collected by the department as part of particularly the registration of service providers. You can see the language there. Any proprietary information provided to the department under this section or to a person determining reimbursement rates may be designated confidential by a service provider. Information designated confidential is not subject to public disclosure under the Maryland Public Information Act, except that information may be disclosed as summarized or aggregated data if doing so does not directly or indirectly disclose the proprietary information of any specific facility.
Yes, Senator Augustine.
Can I move all of the amendments just so that we can get it going?
You can do, you're absolutely able to do so. This is
Asking to move
America.
all of the amendments, including the ones that we worked on with the stakeholders that you have been
Okay.
talked about.
We have a favorable motion from Senator Augustine. Is there a second? Okay, Senator Brooks seconds it, so we do have the amendments on the table in front of us. And any questions on the amendments? We're on the amendments.
Probably should have brought this up before it was so quickly moved. Normally, when we have a bill of this magnitude, a 42-page bill, what we've done in the past, as I recall, when we did the climate change mandated bill and others, is we get a breakdown of, especially here, like how all these different, requirements would affect the different industries. And I mean, everything here, we're talking about packaging, organics, bottles, paper. We don't know. I'm right now trying to communicate with my local chambers of commerce to understand the impact of this bill when we just went through the reprint last night, a 42-page bill, and obviously trying to break it down to understand. I obviously I've heard some initial concerns from the Maryland Chamber of Commerce. I'm sure others will come in as we better understand the mandates in the bill. And it just seems premature to move this when we haven't even had the courtesy of the feedback from our constituents on the reprint of SB 901.
Okay, any questions on the amendments? Okay, Senator Augustine.
This has been, I understand what you're saying, Senator, I do. This has been worked on. We set a framework 2 years ago to ensure that the stakeholders would be able to share their input and to be a part of this bill and this process, which they have done significantly and participated in it, are supportive of it. Those who are most directly impacted by the bill and have been supportive of it. And I would say that it's been thoughtfully put together, and I think it really is going to move things forward for our state, and we'll have learned the lessons from the others, as I've said before. And so that's why I feel very good. I'm very proud of this work product that you have before you. Thank you.
Okay, any questions or discussion just on the amendments? We're just back on the amendments.
Yeah, just
Senator Simonaire.
try not to talk too much this session, but I don't recall if I supported last when I was trying to work. I don't know if I voted for the last time you did. Okay, I try to work it, but things are as they are. It would have been much nicer if we could have had this discussion on Tuesday to give us a little time to dig into it. And just in the future, for me, it'd been nice to have like a little cheat sheet at a high level because it is so big, because I'm kind of lost in it at this point. I'm probably going to just abstain because I need to dig into it more. But that would have been a little helpful. And I understand time is hard to negotiate, but.
That's fair. I'll work on a cheat sheet, as it were. It's a lot, but I don't disagree with you on that. I definitely do that. Yeah.
Okay, any additional questions, discussion on the amendments? Senator Hester.
I see that, that MACO originally was favorable with amendments, and they've been included, right? So they're probably positive on this. Yeah, that makes me feel better.
Yeah, absolutely. And I shared it with the vice chair, the list of all of the folks who participated and have been a part of this process all along. And it absolutely includes, if you recall, from the hearing itself, it was just, MACO is very supportive of this. We've worked it across all stakeholder groups to get to this work product. Absolutely.
I think I asked this yesterday. What's the posture in the House, just so we know, kind of where things are, big picture?
Yeah. Big picture, they are letting us, obviously we're leading, and then going to bring it up with Delegate Stein is the person I'm going to work with on it. That's Chair Corman. Mr. Purdue, he suggested I work with on it. And I've worked with him, obviously, on this 2 years ago, and then also on some of the other producer responsibility legislation.
Okay. Well, folks, obviously some people, have some concerns about the bill, but that's, again, why we do votes. And we have a motion and a second on the table. And so let's do a roll. Yes. Just on the amendment. I'm sorry. Yeah. Did you have a question? Okay. Let's just do a roll call on the amendments. Let's just do it that way. Does that work? Okay.
Vice Chair Kagan?
Aye.
Vice Chair Kagan, aye. Senator Augustine?
Yes.
Senator Augustine is aye. Senator Gallion?
Just on the amendments, yeah.
These amendments, Senator Gallion abstains. Senator Watson?
Yes.
Senator Watson, yes. Senator Attar? Senator Attar, yes. Senator Brooks?
Yes.
Senator Brooks, yes. Senator Carozza?
Abstain.
Senator Carozza abstains. Senator Hester?
Yes.
Is a yes. Senator Washington?
Yes.
Senator Washington, yes. Senator Simonaire? Senator Simonaire abstains. Chair Feldman?
Feldman goes yes, so we've got 8 votes in the affirmative, 3 abstentions. The amendments carry. We now,
Sorry. No,
Yeah.
Vice Chair Kagan asked to be added as a
I'd like to
okay.
see a co-sponsor.
Who would like to be a co-sponsor of the legislation? Raise your hand. We've got Brooks, Hester, Kagan. You got that?
Got Washington, too.
And Washington? Okay. All in favor of the sponsor amendment, raise your hand. All opposed. The sponsor amendment carries.
Move the bill as amended.
Okay, we've got Senate Bill 901 as amended before us. We have a motion from the sponsor, a second from the vice chair. Roll call on Senate Bill 901 as amended.
Vice Chair Kagan?
Aye.
Vice Chair Kagan, yes. Senator Augustine?
Yes.
Senator Augustine, yes. Senator Gallion?
No.
Senator Gallion, no. Senator Watson? Senator Watson, yes. Senator Attar? Senator Attar, yes. Senator Brooks?
Yes.
Senator Brooks, yes. Senator Carozza?
No, and to explain my vote, I'm already receiving texts from the chamber where at least one of the haulers is saying that something like this will put them out of business, so absolutely no.
Senator Carozza, no. Senator Hester?
Yes.
Senator Hester, yes. Senator Washington?
Yes.
Senator Washington, yes. Senator Simonaire? Senator Simonaire abstains. Chair Feldman?
Okay, yes, bill carries 8-2 with 1 abstention, and that completes our work for today, and I will see you on the floor.
Thank you.
And as far as later, I don't keep I'll make an announcement on the floor if we're going to do something between sessions, so that'll
will
be
try to do it broad.
how we handle it. Just going to play it by ear a little bit here, okay?